Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Our house, it has a crowd. There's always something happening, and it's usually I've got no rhythm. And today I'm going to do. I've read another one of my literary white whales, and if you don't know what I'm referring to, I will link below to the video I made about 4 of my literary white whales, 4 books that I have always intended to read. Maybe I started and not finished in a time before I stopped DNFing books, and really want to get back to. And I had great success with the first of those, which was 1984 by George Orwell, which I read and loved and got it, and can't understand why I'd never read it before. I've now read a second from those 4, and I have a third one lined up. I don't know if the fourth one I'll get to this year, but I'm definitely going to read that one. But this is about the second one, and it took me a full month and a week, so 5.5 weeks to read this book, and I usually read 2 to 3 books a week, so this was a huge time investment, because it was just a tough read. The book I'm talking about is Bleak House in the Middle of Our Street by Charles Dickens. Let me tell you a little bit about my history with Dickens. I haven't always struggled with Dickens. I think I don't have a copy here of A Tale of Two Cities. I think that was the first Dickens I read. In the house where I grew up, my parents had on the top shelf in their dining room a full end-to-end leather-bound collection of the complete works of Charles Dickens. That was all the novels, all the short stories, the sketches, the characters, everything that Dickens had ever produced, that they must have bought from a travelling salesman at some point, and it was up there. They also had the complete works of Winston Churchill, leather-bound, which I don't think anyone ever read. And I, in my head, always imagined that I would inherit this complete set, and therefore didn't read Dickens. Never was assigned Dickens in school, and thought, well, I'll always get these. Anyway, I did read Tale of Two Cities in one of those leather-bound covers. I remember working my way through that when I was young, when I was late teens maybe. And then put Dickens aside, think one day all this will be mine. What, the curtains? My parents sold the house, moved to an apartment, and I think a man from Hay on Wye came down in a van and took away all the books they didn't have room for, including the complete set. So I guess if I went to Hay on Wye, I could probably find them in a shop somewhere, because who else is going to buy a full set of leather-bound complete works of Dickens? But I was then left to my own devices. So I did start buying them in Penguin Classics, my preferred publisher of classic works, and I've read Great Expectations, which I really liked. I remember seeing that the old David Lean movie with Sir John Mills as Pip, and that had a big impact on me. I saw that quite young, in black and white movie, very powerful and quite scary. Magwitch is scary, and Miss Havisham is scary, and so I read Great Expectations, kind of knowing the story, and enjoyed that. I think after that I read this might not be in the right order, but around about the same time. This is all about 25 years ago. I was on a bit of a Dickens kick, and so I read Hard Times because it's short, and went through that and enjoyed that. I also read my favourite Dickens experience so far was David Copperfield, which I guess you're supposed to read towards the end because it's the most autobiographical of his works. But I love this, and it's a big, thick one. How many pages is this? 900 pages. I think I was traveling at the time, and so I might have read this on planes and taken this with me, and really good, and enjoyed that. And I've read 2 more Dickens, which I couldn't tell you a whole lot about. I've got Dombey and Son here, and I've got The Old Curiosity Shop, both of which I've definitely read, but could not tell you much about them, whereas I remember more about the other ones. And then the next one, in the next cab in the rank, was Bleak House, and I bought this in October 2002. I definitely started at some point and maybe even got like 200 pages in and gave it up, and it's been sitting taunting me on my shelf for 20 years, during which time I've not read any other Dickens. I did go out at some point, because I got in my TBR a same edition, a Penguin Classics edition of Martin Chuzzlewit, so I have that. I've never read, this is for my next round of literary white whales, I've never read Oliver Twist, even though I pretty much know the story, and my sister played Nancy in her school production. Yeah, Bleak House was taunting me for 20 years, and I picked it up again, started again from the beginning, and have now read the whole thing cover to cover. And not quite as a successful experience for me as 1984, but not terrible, just hard work. For me to spend a month reading the same novel, this came with me to Scotland, so it was on a plane with me, and I didn't get a lot of reading on the plane. at no point was it saying, "Oh, I've got some free time. This is what I want to pick up and read." It was hard going. But I want to talk about the positive aspects. First of all, Dickens is funny. I think sometimes to a fault. He sometimes goes for the amusing illustration, like characterization, and introducing a new amusing personality who's got some particular foible, and then that recurs throughout the novel. And there's a few of those. I think the earliest introduction we get in this to funny characters are Mrs. Jellyby, who is always trying to send money to, was it Borya and concerned with the lives of the people in Africa to the detriment of her children, of which there seems to be a never-ending amount, and her poor husband, who just sits most of the time with his head up against the wall. And it's a very funny portrait, and I think at the very beginning we have three young heroes, and they're in Mrs. Jellyby's house, and one of the kids tumbles down the stairs, and they count each thud. Just a really sharply written joke of an anecdote, and made me laugh, and it's good stuff. And then Mrs. Jellyby recurs through the book, and actually her daughter, Caroline, known as Caddy, becomes better known and beloved of our main heroine, Esther Summerson, and is beautifully painted, and her relationship, and then her relationship with the man she falls in love with, Caddy's husband to be, and her father-in-law to be, is all very funny and wonderful, and that recurs, and we get a lot of these beautifully described characters who are there for the jokes, and they come back again, and then they show up in another scene and something's funny. And the notes tell me that some of these characters are based on real people. Skimpole, I think, is based on Leigh Hunt, but I don't know enough about Leigh Hunt or to understand why that's funny. So a lot of jokes, and perhaps going back to that well too many times. I think this reads much more as a serialized work than maybe other Dickens that I read, or Trollope that I've been enjoying much more the last couple of years. Read a lot of Trollopes, and which were also serialized. I don't think suffer from the clear sense of padding that this serialized work seems to offer. The characters themselves, so that those who don't know, haven't read Bleak House, there's this ongoing court case, Jarndyce v. Jarndyce, which is forever in the courts, and it's a satire on the law's inability to resolve anything, and the way that the lawyers soak up all the monies ever to be distributed amongst the plaintiffs. Okay, that works as satire, but 900 pages of that. And a couple of quite dark characters. Mr. Tulkinghorn is a lawyer who is sort of tough and sharp and hard and problematic, and just, but there is also some affection here. So in amongst this, just pages and pages and pages, and then going back and hitting those beats again and telling the stories, and then a lot of sadness. There's a lot of death in this book. Everyone dies, for the most part, in sad ways. There is illness, and our main heroine is struck ill at one point, and appears to be, not appears to be, is described as being disfigured by her illness, where she once may have been a beauty. Following her illness, she can't be admired for her looks, and so then whatever romance comes her way after that is sort of, I guess, considered more noble because she's lost her looks. It was never really explained in what ways she was disfigured. I was supposed to imagine it's smallpox. I think it was supposed to leave sort of terrible pock marks on your face, but it's never really specified. And Esther Summerson is she's not quite a sort of Jane Eyre character. She's kind of perfect. She's kind of filled with love and generous with her love to those around her. And then the other two wards that she's originally matched up with, who they're cousins, and each plaintiffs in this ongoing court case, and they fall in love, but one of them, Richard, becomes so obsessed that there may be some outcome that he ends up ruining his life over it. And it's he's not a very sympathetic portrait of a man, and his long-suffering girlfriend, fiance, wife never really has much to offer other than the fact that she's beautiful and loving, and Esther adores her. There are moments of exquisiteness here. John Jarndyce, who becomes to whom is it Ada and Richard and Esther become wards, and he looks after them, and he has no time for the court case. He's not interested. He doesn't believe it'll ever resolve itself. He has enough money. He's wealthy enough to be able to be comfortable and look after. But he is just filled with love and kindness to his wards and to anybody else and the other people that are in his that come in and out of his circle. He's just a fine character, and I would gladly have spent more time with him. There is a dark secret at the heart of this book, and for me, the main character, so it's all about Esther. And the other thing I want to say, weirdly, the book moves in and out of first person. So we get Esther's chapters called Esther's narrative, where she talks in the first person, and then we switch away back to the third person. And I found it a little jarring and a little unpolished. I know it's legitimate to be able to move in and out of different narrators. I found it a little jarring. I didn't buy it entirely, that some of these things we get from Esther's point of view and her naivety and her open-heartedness, and then we get the sort of cold-blooded third-person narrator of everything else that's going on. That I didn't quite tonally didn't sit right with me, especially some of it is played for laughs, and some of it is terribly sad, and some of the deaths are tragic and made me cry. Joe, the sweeper, is a terribly tragic character, but the one central character in this book who isn't really at the center, but I think in the TV adaptations she's been put at the heart of it, and for me she jumped off the page as the single most compelling character. As of course I'm talking about Lady Dedlock, and I won't reveal any of the secrets around Lady Dedlock that she's any the secrets that she's keeping, but as a character she is, I say, utterly compelling. All I want to do is see what she's doing and hear what she's saying and see who she's talking to, what she's revealing, what she's keeping secret, how she is engaged in combat with the lawyer Tulkinghorn and her original maid, and her sense of duty and respect, her love for her husband, who is much older than she, and his love for her. I think truly touching on my favourite parts of the book. It was a long slog. And for the first 600-700 pages, I was just reading 20 pages at a time, 50 pages at a time, maybe. I happened to combine with a lot of weekends where I was away and other things going on. Normally, I get a lot of reading done on Shabbat, on Saturday, when I have time to myself. And we were away, and then we were away with my wife's family, and so I wasn't getting those big chunks of work done. Eventually, though, as I got into the last quarter of the book, the book speeds up suddenly. And the last 200 pages are the most exciting gallop, where one of the characters goes missing, and a detective is charged with finding her before some tragedy ensues, and goes racing around the company, tracking her down in coaches, and arriving and asking for direction, and then racing all the way back to London. Breathtaking, page-turning and breathtaking, and completely at odds. Not at odds, but completely out of character with what had happened earlier. So finishing on a high, the last 200 pages super exciting, maybe even a sort of standalone story, and I won't say whether they end in triumph or tragedy. A lovely coda where we find out what happens to all the remaining characters. Just long. This will be my abiding sense of Bleak House, that so much potential, so much there, so much good comedy, good characterizations, genuine tragedy. Dickens has a way of manipulating the reader, or at least this reader, making him laugh and making him cry, making him invested in side characters and hearing their stories. But there was so much padding also in between that I could have just done with about at least a third less. I don't mind reading 500-600 pages. This was 900 pages, and to be committed to 900 pages over 5 weeks is a big deal for me. So since then, I'm trying to pick up some lighter works and get the momentum back. I still want to get to Vanity Fair, is another one of my literary white whales, which is another best of 1,000-page book this year. And I've got another Trollope, the Last of the Palliser series. I don't know when I'll pick up another Dickens. So I've got Martin Chuzzlewit. I think what I might do at some point is buy myself a copy of Oliver Twist. First of all, I think it's not 900 pages. I think it's a shorter work. And second, because I think I know much more about it, I may find that more accessible. This was tough. Would I recommend? Yeah, some people have loved Bleak House. I can't see myself sitting through the BBC, even the recent BBC adaptation, although I do deeply love the idea of Gillian Anderson as Lady Dedlock. but this was a lot for me. You know, not a wholly successful experience, but I'm pleased I've read it. I'm pleased I've taken down another one of my literary white whales, and onwards and upwards. Take care. God bless. Bye.